Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. We are back with another episode of Triggered AF, the podcast.
Yay!
Now, yay! Listen, we have been having such a good time. I don't think y'all understand the type of transformations that are occurring, not only in those who are listening, because we've been getting your DMs and your emails, and we are super, super grateful that you guys are on this transformation journey with us. You do get to decide how your life will be, how you will feel, what you'll experience. And this week, we have a woman who literally is greatness personified. Like, reading her bio was just like, ooh, yes, sis, go. Wasn't it,
Dani? Yeah, I was amazed. I was like, huh? Like every line of like all her accomplishments were like, what? Oh, and that? Oh, and that too? And that other thing? Sis does it all. She does all the things.
All the things. And we are going to tap into all the things that she does, because I really, really love the fact when a woman decides that I'm going to be whoever, however, and whenever I want to be, and ensure that they are serving their highest purpose, tapping into all the gifts that they have been given. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you all to Jayne Allen. If you already know her, then tap in, because this conversation is about to be dope. If you are being introduced to her, then you definitely want to keep listening, because this is dope. She is the author of Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, but she is also an attorney. She is also a brand strategist. Mind you, she's been a brand strategist for Lady Gaga and Prince. Listen, just check the receipts. Sis is awesome. So we're going to bring her all the things, and we love it. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me and for such a dope intro. Like,
yes, that is you. That is you. And I love the fact. And we were speaking before just about the magic that you can create when you allow yourself to flow into all the gifts that you have. Like, how has that been for you? Because you literally, like I said, you have done all the things. And I love the fact that you have done all the things. But what was that flow like for you? Like the getting started. So many people are afraid of, what other people are going to think, or does this align, or will they be confused? And it's you were just like,
or feeling or looking like a quitter, or someone who's giving up on something. And we've talked about that in a previous episode about being a jack of all trades and, the art of the pivot and things like that, where especially for women, it's often hard to leave one thing and start something new without a lot of criticism and resistance.
Well, for me, it wasn't all at once. So, and I thank God that my creative impulse and I guess my higher self or whatever will not let me go, or will not let me stay in a place that I have exceeded the time to be there. So I always knew very strongly when something was completed. And it wasn't like I could just, stick around and kind of coast. And for me, with my career, starting out as an attorney, I got off the traditional track, and I started with such a strong start, and it was set up for me to be successful as a lawyer very early on. And I was able to look forward, and the path was already written. I knew exactly what my life would be like. At that time, I think I was 23. And I was in law school, and I knew exactly what my life would look like at 28. I knew exactly what my life would look like at 35. I knew exactly what my life would look like at 42. Granted, I would be making a lot of money, but I knew exactly what I would be doing and what I wouldn't be doing. And I didn't like that.
That's so interesting, because some people find great comfort in that.
Some people find great in that. And for me, that felt like, well, what's the point? I always wanted my life to feel like an adventure. And
the adventure of it all.
Right. Like, why am I working so hard to just go into something that all these other people have already done and don't love it? So for me, when I worked hard, and I feel like I work hard to love my life. That's why I'm working hard. And I made my first decision.
Work hard to love your life. We got to pin
Listen,
that.
that's it. You have to work. Oh my goodness.
Work hard to love your life. I love that. That's a great way of just summing it up. Like, that's what it should really be about.
Yeah, that's what the hard work is for. It's not to, get rich and be miserable. It's not to, it's to love my life, all of it. And so the one thing I will say that I have always done, and the thing that I did that got me out of this sort of groove of being in the traditional track, is I gave myself permission to dream. And I remember very clearly, I was sitting on my sofa in my apartment in law school, and I just gave myself permission to dream. And I asked myself, okay, if you could have anything you wanted, any way you wanted, what would it look like? And I remember sitting and I remember thinking, and I gave myself the story of what my life would look like and what I want. It was crazy, but I was like, if I could really have it any way I wanted, anything I wanted, I would want to be at a record label in DC, not New York or California. And I wanted to have a recording studio in it. And my friends were going to be in DC. And so I wanted to be around my friends. And I just I just let myself daydream. And then 3 weeks later, I went to a panel. It was a music industry panel that my law school was having. And this guy sitting on the panel, and he says, hey, yeah, I've got this record label in DC, and I just got an investment from a Black billionaire, and we're building a recording studio. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I heard this before. This was my dream. And so I went up to him at the end, because you had to do something, because if he would have just left. And I went up to him at the end and I said, hey, would you ever hire somebody out of law school? And he was like, absolutely not. And I was like, well, and a shout out to Marcus Johnson, 3 Keys Music. So I was like, well, would you hire somebody to work for free? Because I did have the ability in my summer after my second year of law school to split my summer. I'd go to the firm for half, and I had the ability to go to somewhere else for the second half. And I already had a permanent offer. So I knew what I was going to, I had a job waiting for me when I graduated. And so there was some time to take a little risk. And I was like, I want to see what this looks like. And he was like, well, yeah, if you want to, sure. And now holler at me, So I was like, okay.
You bet on yourself. But there's a confidence that comes to be able to say, I'm so good, I'll give you this piece for free, because the free that I'm going to give you, you're going to be so, enthralled by it. You're going to be like, I need to pay you to stay here.
Yes. That's what happened. That is what happened. I went for the second summer. I think I was there for about 6 weeks, or it was something like that. And at the end, I was like, oh, I've got to go back to school. What are you guys going to do? And they were like you, what, what? And they're like, oh, well, what can you come back? So I set my class schedule for Monday and Tuesday. I negotiate with them. They fly me in from Massachusetts, from Cambridge, Boston to Washington, DC. Tuesday nights, I was in the office Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that's how I spent my third year of law school. I was between 2 cities. I was working that job. Wow. I got paid. And that was where I wound up going after law school. And there was a recording studio there. There were artists in and out. It was
in DC.
In DC. My friends were there. I tell that story. So, you can kind of see all of the points that required courage, the points that required giving yourself permission to dream, the points that required taking a little bit of a risk. But sometimes you have to, shape your dreams. And then when you see it in front of you, you got to move.
Yeah.
Listen, it's the fact that you literally, you sat on your couch and designed what it would look like. So many people don't feel that they can make a choice. They allow life to just happen to them. So what was it in you, or what do you believe was so different that you were like, yeah, I'm going to choose how this will look? Now, that's a scary thing.
It's just, I don't know why it's so scary just to dream. Like, I felt like it just took 10 minutes. I just gave myself and one question, like, what would it look like? And I guess I've always been curious. And I think that maybe that's been me. I think I've always kind of been like that. And but I was just curious, thinking, well, if I have this set up, and I don't feel happy, then what would make me happy? I just wanted to know that. And so that was where the day.
Did you feel the emotion of happiness as you daydreamed?
I believe I did. Yes.
Right. Because I know it's
exactly
probably a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, these days, like everyone is a spiritual guru and everyone, and there's a lot of great information out there, I think now about how to manifest things and visualization. But one of the missing components of that is often it's not enough to just daydream. It's also important to feel the emotion of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, because emotion is literally energy in motion, right? Yeah. So when you were talking, I was like, I wonder what feelings came up for her as she daydreamed. And it's so interesting how feeling that emotion a lot of times we'll start attracting those things to us. It's not just the thinking, it's like really living and kind of bringing that future into your now and making it your reality. It's so like, we're so powerful, and it's these little tiny things that can make a big shift in our life.
We are way more powerful than we know and think we are. And the other piece of it was definitely, there's going to be a point where what you want to do and what you want is on the other side of fear, and for me, when I was in that meeting or in that panel, sitting there in the audience, I mean, I was just a second-year law student. I had no experience. There was nothing particularly special about me, and I was petrified to go up to this guy sitting on the panel, like, I know, and look crazy. And I just had one question, that was the one thing I thought to ask, would you ever? And I believed he would say, I didn't believe he would say yes. That's why I phrased it that way. Would you ever hire as my law school? Because everyone had told me it is impossible to get a music industry job straight out of law school. Nobody will hire you. It won't happen. It's not going to happen. And so I was like, is there any way that it could be different? And so that was my one little bit I mustered enough courage to ask that one little question, like, well, maybe could it be different? And he was like, no.
But that's it though. But that's it though. You could have decided. That's also too why I don't believe in taking what others' experience has been and bringing it into your bosom and just accepting it as this is what it has to be because that is what they said. And I find
that's myself, what it's been in the past for them.
Yeah. Like, who cares if it's been like that for the past 20 years? I could be the difference maker, but I'll never know that I'm the difference maker if I don't step out of my fear of, well, what if they tell me no? But what if they say yes? I always tell people when they're like, well, how did you do? And what about? And I'm like, well, the worst thing that can happen is they tell me yes. And the piece that I don't say is they tell me yes, and I'm not ready for the yes. That's, in my opinion, the worst thing that can happen, because no, in my belief, no means next opportunity. Next opportunity. And I really, really love, Dani, what you said about energy is, what is it? Or emotions. Or just energy in motion. Like, you have to do something. You will have to take a step to get from one part of the road or to get from this side of the street to the other. And and let's not even, because you just breezed over the fact that you were at whole Harvard. But, I'm not gonna call you out on the fact you just breezed over the fact. Just at Harvard, second-year law student. But I love the fact that you did not allow what your quote unquote position was in life to not allow you to recognize, because that was an opportunity moment, which is what you had called them before, like recognizing an opportunity moment. What is that like? We all will have moments that come and that happen where we have to make a choice, but how do you even recognize it? Because it's not like it was written on Yay and I Say in this moment, you're going to be presented and you'll have to make a choice. How were you so in tune that you were able to recognize an opportunity moment and then actually go for it? What was that like? And how do you continue to do it? Because you kept doing it.
Well, I the first step was I recognized it because I had spent that time asking myself, what do I really want? So I had given myself that moment to really dial in and tune into myself, get quiet, and ask myself that very important question: what do you really want? What is going to make you happy? Okay, you have this thing, you know that doesn't make you happy. So what is going to make you happy? You know, what do you want, girl? So I had that.
What you want to eat?
I know what you want to eat. Right. So I actually took the time to answer that question for myself. Yeah. So when the moment came up, I could recognize, I was like, wait, this sounds familiar. I've heard this before when I got in tune with myself. So there must be something here. And my dad says to me, he's said to me, and my dad's a very powerful manifester, very powerful mindset person. And we do a lot of reading and a lot of talking together. And one thing and one thing that he said to me is, you got to get your no. He's like, go get your no, because at least you have a starting point. Then you don't have to wonder if it's yes or if it's no. Go get your no. If it's no, then you have a starting point. You can go from there. Yeah. And if you get a no, try to get a why. And so I had that in my pocket. I had that little bit of training.
That gem.
Because no is valuable information, especially if you can couple it with a why. Because now you got a starting point. So when I was like, well, if I'm gonna get my no, I'm gonna get my no. You know?
And then I'm gonna find out why.
I won't be wondering. I won't be kicking myself. And I think the other thing that's been very important to me is that I always viewed a regret as the most important thing I could generate. And not most important, most expensive thing I could generate in my life. Like, there's nothing more expensive than a regret. So I try to minimize my regrets. And if I know that I'm going to regret not doing something, I'm definitely going to do it. So because you can't, because it's like, how much money do people spend trying to go back and, redo regrets? So to me, I'm like, the cheapest thing to do is just not generate them. So in that moment, there was a risk, there was a personal risk, a lot of things, perception risk, to going up to this stranger and asking him what I had been taught was a crazy question. But in terms of my life and my happiness, that was the gateway. And all I could do was knock at the door. So.
Listen, okay, gateway. First of all, I'm getting my whole life in this conversation.
Right.
Because I love multi-hyphenate people in general. But it's especially multi-hyphenate women, because for so long we've been taught, and again, Danielle, we talked about it in another episode, the Jack of all trades episode, where you need to master this one thing, where you have become a master of many things. I mean, improv, stand-up comedy. And I always tell people, I call it the yes and phenomenon. And I talk about it in some of my trainings when I do like corporate training. Yes and your life.
Yeah.
Don't but your life or put a period there. Yes and it. So it's yes, you want to help children all over the world. Yes, and you also want to have a fulfilling career that pays you 7 figures. Like, there is a way that you can decide that you're not going to just accept the one lane, but you can master multiples. Right. And so for you've not only mastered multiples, but you have named yourself differently in each of those phases. So now, Jayne, listen, and I love that.
I love that. And that's fascinating to me, like the power of renaming. We were talking a little bit about that, just how throughout history, that is a powerful tool to bring somebody into their greatness and into like fulfilling themselves. So I love that idea.
Or into owning them.
Yeah. I mean, it can also be it can be destructive to strip someone of their name or to rename them and kind of call them into their purpose. So you actually do that, where you like rename yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you and how that helps you create your life the way you have?
Sure. So my name, my birth name, my given name, my name I've gone by professionally is Janique Thiele. And when I decided to do different things outside, I was working as a executive in the music industry, and my career continued from that moment. And but I did feel constrained that I couldn't express creatively. And it was kind of this unspoken thing that you're either going to be a serious business person or you're going to be a creative. And the twain shall not mix, or you won't be taken seriously in either space. So for me, I didn't want to just leave it at that. It was just this fire burning in me to express creatively, to learn different things. I decided I was going to take level 1 improv comedy because I felt like as a executive and a lawyer that I was repressing my expression. I wasn't being authentic in how I was expressing, and I wanted to reconnect to that. And I thought, okay. I think everybody in the world should take level 1 improv. It is a spiritual lesson. It is much more than just,
It is. I've taken acting classes for a number of, I guess, some time now. Wow, time's flying. I'm getting old. And one of my closest friends, I met in that class, and she's actually a lawyer and had a lot of that same feeling of feeling super stuck and repressed and just feeling like she wasn't exploring her creative side and her femininity and all the things that come with being in positions that are usually male dominated spaces. She's a corporate lawyer. So she's in a male dominated space, and she just felt this repression. So it's like confirmation for her. I'm going to share this with her. Like, hey, I met someone else and they felt the same way and they did the same things. And she's actually on her own journey to explore that more and to diversify and try new things. Because we don't realize sometimes that we box ourselves into success. Like we think we're being successful, but you're actually kind of closing off other parts of yourself in this effort to be successful. And then it's like you have to stop at some point and redefine what success means to you.
Exactly.
Because then it's like, I have all the things, but I'm not happy. So now what? And we don't often know what to do after we reach that point. And you kind of have clearly cracked the code, John.
Well, you know what? I think that a lot of times with success in those pathways, they get narrower and narrower and narrower the higher you go. And you keep shaving off more and more of yourself to take that ladder up. And so you find yourself in a prison of success, basically, at the top of it, if you don't keep reinventing how you're successful. So I guess my path has been being successful in a broader way across different things. So I never want to find myself so boxed in that I feel like, oh, this is the only way I can be successful. There are 15 ways that I can be successful. And just knowing that gives me a freedom to explore life and the world. And I think that's what living is about. So yes to your friend. Yes. Do improv, take a class. I did this while I was working my executive job. I did it on the weekends. I go after work, and I didn't quit my job to do this. My job funded my exploration. And I just gave myself little corners to try something new. There was no risk in taking an improv class. And a bunch of my colleagues took it after me. They were like, okay,
let's try this too.
I secretly wanted to do it. I'm like, of course you did, So sometimes your step forward empowers other people to take theirs. So, more people have the same desires as you than you would think. So somebody's got to have the courage. But
did the improv eventually lead you to like the different, maybe like bring out a different character or a name change or okay.
So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed level 1, and that was but I wanted to do more. And so I took a class with Richard Lawson. And
I love him.
Yes, it was transformational. That was a really big moment for me. And it wasn't that I wanted to be an actress, but I did want to be able to express myself. I wanted to be able to do on-camera work if I wanted to. And that was the first place that I got the courage and the idea and the encouragement to write a book. And he said in the class, he was talking about an acting career, but he's like, sometimes you gotta change your name. He said sometimes you gotta change your name, and he was like, a lot of people pick screen names and or professional names for acting, whatever. And it gave me this idea that oh my gosh, I can pick a different name, and I can go forward, and all the things I'm afraid to do, this other name can do them.
Yep.
And it gave me a sandbox to play in and a creative space that didn't carry all the risks. I could try different things. So I got this idea anytime I have a project that I'm, a little bit uncertain of, or something new that I want to try. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to change your name.
So, I like that. I like that it doesn't come from a place of trying to whitewash your name.
No.
I when I first was reading your bio, I was like, I wonder if it's like to sound more like this or sound more like that, or because there are people who will change their names, like even, and not even just within the Black culture, like even a lot of very popular Jewish writers and comedians, they'll like make their last name sound a little less, foreign or less Jewish or less Russian, or like a lot of people will do it to kind of Americanize, which essentially is whitewashing their name, to make it, and they'll say, to make it easier to pronounce. But we all know it's to make you often more marketable to a broader group of people. I love that yours came from a different space and kind of giving, especially people who may have ethnic names, whatever the ethnicity is, to not feel like they have to do it for that reason, but because it's just another way. And you can reinvent yourself using a name. Even like people will call like an alter ego. Like Beyonce is Sasha Fierce. Like a lot of artists do it.
And Melissa, that's my alter ego. Melissa has all the guts. Alechia. Alechia is not. Alechia is introverted. She doesn't like to be around people. But Melissa, that girl there, she gets it. She is a powerful woman.
It's so powerful to take those. So do you have other names other than Jayne Allen? You don't have to share them if they're like secret. But you have multiple names. I love that. I like that idea.
My friends, they joke about it. They're like, girl, they know a new project's coming when there's a new name for it. But this Jayne Allen was really important to me. And so my name is Jayne Allen. And the Allen is my middle name. That's my grandmother's first name. And my mom has the same middle name. And so when I went to do, I published all of my nonfiction books as under Janique Seeley. So when I did fiction, I knew I wanted to do fiction. I wanted to give myself a clean break. And also I was in another corporate job that, when you're going to publish something, you believe it's going to be called Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. You know what I'm saying? You need a little bit of some separation.
A little bit of separation.
Little bit at the beginning. It was, and this was at the beginning, I did not have a major publisher behind me. It was just me. And I really did not have the complete courage to step out and risk my career that was funding everything to do it. So I had to, again, so now you know how we got up to this place, but I wanted to make my pen name something that I could live with, that was reflective of me, that was reflective of the strength and courage that has been reflected to me from the people important to me. So Jayne is, people call me Janique J. So Jayne was fine. And Allen, I really wanted to pull in my grandmother's name,
her spirit,
and that strength and courage to live into what, I wanted this to be. I wanted it to be more than
powerful. That's powerful.
That is so amazing. It literally is like, of course, P. Diddy does it like every couple years. He reinvents himself.
Right.
But it is a way that you get to reinvent yourself and live all of these lives. The age of Adeline, I think it's Adeline, the one that had Blake Lively in it. I'm not sure if you guys ever saw that, but she had gotten struck by lightning and then it stopped her from aging for like 90 years or so. And so she had fallen in love with this young with this young man. And then she, of course, had to leave once he was like, you never get old. Like, how come I'm getting all these wrinkles and you just staying the same? But in her not aging, it allowed her to live so many lives and to have so many different experiences. And for too many people, they feel as though, well, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. And I'm of the belief that time is going to keep moving anyway. So why not explore?
Right.
Why not explore? And in the book, it's Tabitha, which I cannot listen. The book, Tabitha, she had to choose a word for her life. And the word for her life was exhausted. And it's like, wait.
Yeah.
For too many people, they feel as though that being exhausted, not getting rest, team no sleep,
it's
go
glorified.
hard. Yeah, no days off. No, first of all, that's toxic as fuck. Yes, it is toxic.
Right.
Number one. But it also presented her an opportunity. And we talked earlier about opportunity moments. But the option and the ability to choose your life, how, when you were creating this character, like, what did you draw upon to kind of pull it back to helping everyone recognize that even if you have taken advantage of an opportunity moment and it didn't go the way you wanted, you can just choose something different again? Like, what was that? What were you drawing on for that?
I just think life, so I'm 43 years old, and I wrote, and this to me was kind of the embodiment of my 30s. So Tabby is not me, but I think she's very recognizable to me, and also recognizable to a lot of the women that I know. And she's living this life that seems to be on the prescribed, good life, best life, like what you're supposed to do, the checklist life. And she has an opportunity moment of, a crisis that's a wake-up call. And it's not a good, it's not a good thing to happen. It's a crisis, but it gave her this opportunity to look at her life. Because a lot of the times we wind up in a life that we've been making choices the whole time, but we don't realize it. And all these unconscious choices, you're living a word, whether you realize it or not. And to have a moment or a crisis or something, an opportunity that comes up, and boom, you get to realize and take a look at your life when you still have an opportunity to change it and realize what word that is and whether or not that's the word you want it to be. So for Tabitha in Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, she's realizing, oh my gosh, my word is exhausted. And that's not the word I want my life to reflect.
That is, wow.
So now she's got to change it. And that's the arc of this trilogy, of her realizing that a lot of these things are choices. And what are the choices that she needs to make to bring her life into whatever that word is that she really wants it to be. And I think that's, and I think that's a journey that many of us are on, or want to be on. But we don't talk about it. We don't have models, that are readily accessible for it, because as women, we haven't really had that many opportunities, as of historically, to make these kinds of choices for what does a fulfilling life really look like for me. We haven't, it's very recent that we're able to even start to ask those questions. So,
and realizing that not making a choice is a choice.
Yeah, it is.
Like, that is a choice within itself. Whenever you decide, whatever you're accepting, whatever you're tolerating, is a decision that you're making to do that. Yeah. It's like there is no such thing really as not deciding. You've decided. You have decided. You just may not be happy with your decision. I mean, there's so many parts about that you just said that spoke to me. When you think about, if I had to sum up my life in one word, what is that word? I would love to encourage our audience to really stop for a second and think about that, because you may be surprised when you stop for a second and have to define it, because it brings me back to, I shared it in another episode about what kind of really propelled a part of my journey was getting into a car accident. And it was a really scary car accident. I spun around the highway. I got hit by 2 cars. It was a thing. And I remember after I was like, okay, I'm alive. I'm okay. The one thing that I was like, how would I feel if I died right now? Like, would I be happy with my life, with everything that happened, where I was? And the resounding answer was no. You know, and it's those like moments that kind of humble you, and you're just like, I'm not happy for real. You know, like, and you're going along and you're just kind of in the motion of things, and you're on the hamster wheel, but then you stop for a second and life will shake you up and be like, hold on, I don't this is not it for you.
Yeah.
You are wasting away. And I think it's the great Michael Jackson that says that you need to stop existing and start living. You know, and when you said that, that's what I get from Tabitha. Like, it's about really taking your life and redefining it and changing the word that is attached to who you are, because it may not even be fitting. And that's why it's important sometimes to change your name, because who you are, that name doesn't even serve you anymore.
Right.
Or
and two, it's we have this ongoing thing where AirPods are always falling out of your ears, and to be so expensive, they really should stay in a lot longer. It makes no sense. I know that was super random.
Insane.
Yes, it is super random. But for those who are listening, whenever we do these interviews, we have to constantly, like, if you ever go on YouTube and watch, because you can go on YouTube and watch the interviews, we are constantly pushing our ears to get the AirPods to go back in. And if there are any Apple, production specialist, design specialist, I need you to figure out a way to keep them in our ears. We pay way too much money for them not to stay in our ears.
God,
but now, back onto the point. It's the problem is, and this is honestly why I am in the process of shutting down my current company. Mind you, the most traumatic thing I think I have done as an adult, more traumatic than having my daughter by myself in an emergency C-section with my coworker holding my hand. Because at least I knew there was an end point to that.
Yeah.
I knew, okay, after this surgery, she'll be out, she'll be here. We'll figure it all out from there. But closing down the business in the panorama, I realized that I have been existing in my company, doing only the things that I had to do. I would get sad when I would get clients. Who does that?
Right.
Not any normal person who enjoys what they're doing. I would get a client and I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I got to now work on their stuff that pushes back what I really want to do a year from now. And what I realized in my own journey is I had been unconsciously making decisions and choices that did not bring me joy. And so I created an entire methodology called conscious valueship, where you establish like a really, really deep understanding of like how your personal skills, your know-how, your talent, your purpose, and like your intrinsic essence, like how it adds value to whatever entity that you're serving in, engaged with, or even connected to. But then also how it allows you to live a life where you're fulfilled, where you're at peace, because everybody teaches you, oh, this is how you make 6 figures. This is how you hit 7 figures. This is how you take pictures or become friends with your greatest idols and all the things. But nobody says, hey, this is how you incorporate and live a life that is peaceful,
right?
That is fulfilled, that you get excited about, that you don't have to go on vacations to escape from because you're so miserable.
And wait for the weekend to come, like dying for Saturday and Sunday for 2 days of like not thinking about your life. It's like, that's not, there's too many, there's way more days in the week than on the weekend. So we need to try to flip that.
Right.
It's like, why don't I want to do what I want to do for the longer stretch of the week as opposed to the shorter stretch of the week? We have it backwards.
Yes. That was really what I mean, this has been something that I learned along the way. And when it came time for me to write a fiction book and a novel, and to have it, for me, I really wanted to address broader themes and to make it be a book that wasn't just, hours that you kind of lost in a book, but something that was going to be something that was transformational in life, that would far exceed the value of just a book. Because I know for me, I've been a nonfiction reader. So when I was like, okay, I want a book that would be meaningful to me, even in a busy life, and that had, meat to it and would stick to my bones. And so I viewed the story as a call to adventure, that I was hoping that, in reading it, you couldn't get to the last page without sparking something in your life, that even in small ways, because Tabitha's story is not some big change call to adventure, like now I'm backpacking in the Andes. She's still in her regular life, but she's making more conscious decisions. She's got to shake things up. She's gonna go through it, and the roller coaster of just even small change in your life brings something into you that gives you strength and courage, that you can make your life bigger, that you get more decisions.
Not always waiting for the big car accident, right?
Or
not always waiting for, there's a lot of
the panorama.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. I'm fascinated by trauma. So I'm doing a lot of work and study around trauma, and there's a lot of redefining of what trauma is. A lot of us were raised to believe that it had to be like a big, drastic event that happened in your life to make you who you are. And now they're realizing that it's the tiny, tiny traumas that really fuck us up, right? Yeah. It's the, and not to ever bash anyone who does the cry it out method with their children, but there are a lot of studies that show with children that are 0 to 2 months who do not know how to self-regulate and self-soothe, that it can result in trauma to that baby, because they don't know how to do it. So their survival instincts are kicking in when they don't know how to regulate that, so there's just so much work around it. But the point is more so around redefining and not always looking for the big flashing neon light sign. Sometimes it's the tiny note. It's the tiny note. It's the tiny thing that really wants to spark change in you. And I feel like we're always waiting for a big sign. I love that you're just like, no, it was like a small change, a small shift that changed the entire course of my life. It doesn't have to be this big, dramatic, traumatic thing. And I think it goes both ways. Like, your trauma should be recognized as small. And as people will try to be like, oh, it wasn't that serious. It's not about the act. It's about how I receive the act, right? It's about how I perceive it. The same thing with big things that are supposed to push you into a better direction. It's like, always be open to all the signs, big, small, or in between.
And to listen to yourself. And one of the things that was, for me, and I took a different approach. This was my first time writing fiction, so, and I was an engineer undergrad, and I was, I went to law school.
What else do you do?
Well, no, this was a handicap here. So for writing fiction, I'm not a literary person. I wasn't a literature major. I just thought about what kind of fiction experience could show the magic between the layers of everyday experience. I could make, make an epic adventure out of what somebody is living every day. Because the way I view it, the experience of being Black in America, the experience of being a woman in America, it is, and in the world, even now, is weighty. There's so many layers of that experience that we don't unpack. We don't examine. And what that does to a person, that's worth looking at. And there's magic there. Because
magic in the mundane,
and the mundane, and the person the super being, basically, that you have to become to survive whatever day that is, or whatever is happening to you, and all of the layers of that. That's worth examining. That's worth celebrating. That's worth seeing yourself as someone who can handle adventure, and that who is deserving of listening to yourself and granting yourself whatever it is that you are wishing for, even if it's on a small level, even if it's like, oh, you want to take that painting class? Honey, take the painting class. Just yes, maybe you might be a terrible painter, but at least you tried. And at least you got to do that, do that. For yourself. So that's kind of that's how we hopefully will start to adjust ourselves into really starting to live bigger. And it does not have to be some major shift. It's just allowing, the listening to ourselves and granting that wish, even if it's in a small way.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And also too, when you listen to yourself, whether it's in, the big way or even in the small way, you make better decisions. Like Tabitha was okay around infertility. That was her wake up call. It's as women, especially not as, women who sometimes have been under resourced. What does it look like to have a conversation about, I'm not sure if I want to have children, but I also don't want to be in a rush. So, what does it look like to make a decision early to say, hey, there are so many medical advances now. I can freeze my eggs at 28 or at 30 or even at 32 to give myself the option to choose.
Yeah. Well, we don't talk about that, right? So
no.
When do you have that conversation with
Never.
your friend? And we should. And the thing about reproductive health, especially in the Black community, we're not addressing the conversation. It's a issue where information exchanged is power. It's a reproductive health, and especially with options, the sooner you make those choices and the sooner you take advantage of that and the sooner you address that, the better. Yeah. But then it's a financial issue. So a lot of times when you're just trying to make it financially, when you're just getting your footing in your 20s and your early 30s, that's when you would have to make an out-of-pocket expenditure if you're going to freeze your eggs. Yeah. And all places are not, and processes are not created equal. So really having an information exchange with other women is how you empower yourself and to understand, to give yourself, the maximum options. So I was just hoping that this could help start those conversations and make it more normal to talk about this and to evaluate whatever if you decide you don't want to have kids, if you decide you do want to have kids, if you decide you want to have kids by yourself, whatever it is, that there's support there and that the conversation's normalized and that you see all kinds of examples in front of you instead of it being something we hide away. Even reproductive health challenges,
Yeah, it's so big. And going back to what you said about the exchange of information and another episode that we had about sticky friendships and the importance of diversifying your friends. I didn't know that egg freezing was a thing until a non-Black friend brought it up. Yeah. And I was like, you doing what? Yeah. And I was so I'd never heard any of my Black girlfriends talk about it. It was not a thing. It's not a thing. I've never heard anyone say that was something that was even an option for a successful young woman who's career driven and focused, but still wants a family. And that idea of having it all just always seems like it's so far fetched, especially for Black women, always feeling like we have to choose one or the other. We can't typically have both. And it's so funny how those tropes kind of seep into popular culture, like the rich auntie. Yeah. Right. The rich auntie doesn't have kids. Right. But she's successful and she's fabulous because she chose that life. She chose that all she would be is rich and fabulous and successful. But she can't have kids because she chose that. Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Or she can't have a man. Or she can have a man because she's successful. And it's like, no, I want the love. I want the money. I want the kids. And I want to travel like I don't have any anchors on me. The fuck? Why do I have to choose?
Or what we call normalizing luxury, right? It's something that we're saying now in the Black community. It's like a normalized luxury. Get a housekeeper, get a nanny, get all the things. When in other cultures, it's so normal. So I definitely want to just highlight that importance of exchanging information, talking to people that don't look like you, building those connections and having intimate conversations, because that's how you move forward. And sometimes we're not talking, but we're having so many strong opinions. And it's like, we often don't have enough information to come up with conclusions. Yeah. We just don't. Yeah. We just don't.
Yeah, no, and I've been in some discussion groups around Black Girls Must Die Exhausted and book clubs. I've joined conversations, and one of the best moments, some of the best moments, there have been so many, but in hearing women disclosing in the group for the first time, and this has happened more than once, saying, you know what? I have a reproductive health issue. Some people said I have endometriosis. I have fibroids. I have this. I have, something similar to what Tabitha is going through. And I've never said it before to anybody, but now that we're talking about it, I want to share. I want to say
it's a safe place. Yeah.
It's a safe place. So if this can start those conversations and other ones, and just, saying, look, I am caring a lot. And you know what? Yesterday did try to take me out. So I do feel good about myself that I made it to today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just relating. Because it's something that, again, within the Black community, sometimes talking about certain things is frowned upon, and sharing or telling people your business or airing dirty laundry. I mean, those are all like things that we just say normally, or you telling the family's business, it needs to stay within the family. I think it was Alechia and I, we had a conversation around, if you're speaking, like a lot of people now are speaking their truth. And sometimes your truth is that your uncle molested you, right? So there's this idea that you should protect the abuser and not share your story that could help others for sake of protecting a loved one that harmed you. Yeah. So then it's like, or the person could have not made that decision so that they wouldn't be a part of your truth.
Right.
Like, it's like, who's taking the responsibility here? Is it the abuser or the abused? It's like, who's responsible for that part, So when you think about all those things, there's so much power. And I love the idea, and I love the conversations that are starting to happen among Black women of just really sharing and helping each other, as opposed to everybody acting like they're good and having it all together, but really going home and feeling awful and miserable and sad. So it's important.
Yeah. And
telling your truth. Oh, go right ahead.
Oh yeah. That comes up in the story as well with Tabitha and her friends, and that thing. I didn't think about it exactly in that way, how common it is in the Black community that you don't tell your business, but it is something that happens so frequently that whatever's happening in family, you're conditioned to hold that as a woman, as a secret, as a, and protect everybody else. But inside, it's taking you down, and you need to unburden yourself. But, culturally and societally and otherwise, you're deconditioned from taking advantage of the things that you most need. And sometimes that's your girlfriends, and just to be able to be honest and to be transparent.
Yeah, because not saying it wages a war inside yourself, which is why, I've had very open and honest conversations about how I grew up, like with my parents. And, I was very honest with them. I felt you didn't protect me. You had me in a whole cult around things. And I get, the reason why you did it or what you thought was the case, but it was not. And so this is how it has affected me. And this is, these are the thousands of dollars that I've spent in therapy, working through the traumas, trying to figure out how to become my best self so I don't mess up the next generation, which is my daughter and any future children I have. And it took a long time for me to be able to say out loud, this happened, and not feel bad about, quote unquote, saying our business or destroying whatever the image was of what it was supposed to be. And it's like, if you can get out of the purview or the lens of this is how it's supposed to be, and acknowledge and recognize what it is, then you can work towards true healing and then growth.
Yeah.
But if you keep lying to yourself or being like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt so-and-so's feelings. There are a number of very famous people, including Tyler Perry, who wouldn't tell his truth until his mom was dead. And it's like, and it's like, I get that you don't want to hurt her, but what about the war that it wages in you? You can't keep relationships, and this isn't about him, this is just in general. You can't keep relationships, you can't grow, you can't achieve your highest, best anything, because there is a whole war going on inside you. And at this point and place in the game, if they want a history to recount them better, then better. Tell your truth and keep it pushing. Grow.
Yeah, it's important to do it, and you can't create the life you want if you're constantly in survival mode. And I want to clarify again, because I know so many of us are just on a spiritual, fascinating journey right now, and just always sometimes there's this elitism that seeps into just everything that is frustrating. And this idea that you have to be this perfect person, you can only manifest when you're vibing at your highest self. And that you have to be this pure, nice, kind person that's always on cloud nine and always happy and always sweet and never has bad days to create the life you want. And that's just bullshit.
That's right.
You can be vibing under the bridge and still create a certain lifestyle for yourself. There are people who do it on accident. Okay. You're already creating probably a decent life for yourself, completely on accident, completely unaware, completely unconscious of what you're really capable of on accident, right?
Yeah.
So it's more so about the intention of things and being intentional. And I love your journey of creating it first within your mind, of giving yourself permission to daydream so that when it did come, you recognized it. And then it all coming full circle of realizing that you also have to be brave enough to take the step and to take the risk and to realize that you are going to have to adjust whenever you want a change. It's uncomfortable. It hurts sometimes. It has all these other emotions that are going to come with it. But if you know at the end of all this is happiness and the life that you really want, it has to be worth it. Like, how do you feel like it's been worth it for you? All the things that you have accomplished. Do you feel like you are happy? Do you feel like you are creating that life for yourself? Honestly,
I can say honestly, yes. I mean, I definitely am.
It's out there, everybody. It's out there. Everyone that's listening, it's possible.
It's possible. I am living on purpose. Every day is not perfect. I'm not happy every day.
Right.
But in the moments that I'm not, I know to ask myself, well, what do you want? What would make you happy? It's just that simple. And then
I love that.
And then having that in my pocket, as a reference, when it presents itself, there's always going to be a barrier of fear. When the gateway to your dreams, when you approach it, the guard's man or woman is always fear. It's always fear. So if you know that what you want is on the other side and you've given yourself the opportunity to really dial in and at least know what you believe will make you happy, that could give you the fuel to get through the gateway, to get past that.
Past that fear.
The fear, because there will always be fear. There will always be fear.
No, like your body literally releases hormones. Like, I don't think, like people, like when I work with my clients and you're trying to create a dietary plan for them, right? Or you're trying to get them to work out, or you're trying to do certain things, they always feel like all they need is willpower, right? Because, if I just have the willpower, I'm going to get through it and I'm going to figure it out. And, I just have to push and be motivated and I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And it's just like, okay, there's so much more than that, because your body is literally releasing things, releasing hormones, releasing chemicals to convince you that you can't do something. You can't fight yourself. You can't beat yourself, right? Like you're your greatest enemy. So when I hear people like, oh, it's on the other side of fear, it's like, no, I don't think we realize just how much on the other side of fear it is. That your body literally wants to, it wants to protect you. That's what it thinks it's doing. So it's hard to even decipher that you're fearful of something. It doesn't even feel like fear. It feels like protection. It feels safe to stay in that space and to stay where you're at because it's comfortable. And your body's literally like, hey, where the hell are you going? You need to sit back here. You need to just relax. You need to sit on this couch and eat this pizza. And I love pizza. Nothing wrong with eating pizza. But, it's like we don't even recognize how much fear is wired into us. And sometimes we don't even realize that that's what's keeping us, because the fear feels so familiar. You have to rewire your brain and imagine the other option so that can feel familiar. And that's why visualization and those emotions attached to the visualization is so important, because you have to then trick your brain into realizing what familiar should actually feel like.
Yeah. And the body is miraculous and our brain's miraculous. And like its purpose is to keep us alive. And it's a lot easier to stay alive in modern society than what our brains were wired for.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're wired for efficiency. So sometimes the fear that comes up is our bodies trying to conserve energy. So they're like, it's not worth making that expenditure because we want to conserve our energy
Right.
as much as possible. And we get that idea in our mind, oh, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And especially if you don't have something to pull you through that, which is your dream, write it down, visualize
You need more than willpower.
You need more than willpower. You do. And I love that you said that. And I love that you're telling people that, because there is so much more. And it literally is sometimes just giving yourself a small yes, or just a small decision to just live a little bit bigger.
It starts so simple, and you've done such a good job of just simplifying and letting people understand that everything doesn't have to be so grandiose. Instagram, social media is not real life. Like it doesn't have to be. That's a highlight reel of all the grandiose things, but there are tiny things in between that lead to that. So I like that your story seems like, oh, I can do that. Or, I can, change the name of it. Let me, I hope it encourages someone to be like, I'm just going to start over, and I'm just going to go with a new name. And I hope that gives them the courage, because that's really what these alter egos do, right? It's like, I have this other person that's going to come out, and she's going to do all the things so that I don't feel guilty or I don't feel scared. If that's what you need to do it. Yeah. Do all the things and try to manage all the fear that comes by taking those little tiny steps of, I like, for me, for a long time, my little thing when I start to feel a little nervous about something is I like to go out to eat by myself. There's something about it that just makes self-care. It's not just, it was a self-care, obviously, but it was just that feeling of like the anxiety I knew would come sitting there by myself. Mm-hmm. The stares that you get when you're a woman that's sitting by herself eating alone. I'm not going to go eat at Denny's. Like, I'm going somewhere probably really nice. Yeah. I dress up and I go sit down and I eat, and I remember the anxiety. And sometimes it still happens where people really stare at you when you're by yourself. And just overcoming that and enjoying my dinner, enjoying myself would always kind of remind me, like, hey, like you're your best friend. You're the person that has the answers that you're looking for. Like, bet on yourself every time, because you will never lose like that.
I love that.
And it'll be tiny little acts of just self-care. And that's what self-care is. Tiny things that encourage you and help motivate you and remind you of the power that you have in your own decision-making.
Yeah, it's that small yes that you were saying. Give yourself that small permission, that yes to, like you were saying, Jayne, to dream bigger, to outline what it looks like. So when those opportunity moments do come, you're like, oh wait. Because you said, you were like, wait, this sounds familiar. I already knew.
Yes, exactly.
I already saw it. It was that. I'm like, you're repeating. You've been in my head.
Okay, you was on the couch with me listening.
Somebody's listening. Not just Big Brother.
That's right. Exactly.
I love it. Well, listen, we must tell us, where do we get the book? I know it comes out September the 28th, I believe. So where do we get the book? Where can we stay connected with you? Because again, you are excellence personified, greatness in motion. Yes. But I really am excited for the conversations that the book is already, starting to initiate and starting to inspire. But how do we stay connected? Where do we find the book? We need to know.
Yes. Okay. So the book is available online. We're in a pre-order. So you can go into your local bookstore. You can go in your library and ask them to pre-reserve it for you. We're on a mission for the New York Times bestseller list, honey. Yes. So I'm like, please make the pre-orders, and you can do it anywhere books are sold. And at my website, JayneAllen.com, I have a newsletter where I talk about what I'm reading, what I'm thinking about, and that's a great way to stay connected. And I'm also on Instagram as Jayne Allen Write. So it's JayneAllen. And I look forward to the conversations that start. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's just, there's just so much to unpack. I mean, just the title alone. When we were doing the research, we were like, Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. Like,
I was like,
alone,
damn,
like,
exhausted?
Oh my God, why exhausted? Is that the word? Is there another word that we can use? But there isn't.
Yeah,
and there isn't.
There it isn't, and but the one beautiful thing about the experience that we've had as Black people especially is that we are able to change the meaning of words. We've been able to survive
all the words.
Thrive. And in the book, the meaning of the word exhausted and the meaning of the title changes multiple times. So by the end of the book, it means something entirely different.
Just like the name, we get to change it.
We get to change and redefine.
Redefine. Even when we were given the name or forced to take the name of, our slave masters, we even still decided how we were going to use it. Toby was like, okay, prior to his homies, all right, y'all can call me Toby, but in front, this is what I need you to call me. Right. So that I can keep this other foot that I got. Okay. It's requiring too that you acknowledge, hey, just because someone has used this word in this way does not mean that I have to accept the definition that they have given it.
Yeah.
I just don't.
You don't.
I just don't.
You get to decide. You create. And I am completely smitten with the idea of someone just deciding every single day who they want to be, even if it wasn't the same person from yesterday, even if they don't know what the person really looks like. It's just like sitting and deciding who you want to be. Like you sit and I was like, I sat down one day and I was like, I want to get into the best shape of my life. And it was like, what does that person look like? What does she eat? What does she drink? Where does she go? What does she wear? How does she wear her hair? It's just like, and then another day, maybe just deciding something else and realizing that you don't have to be all the other things you've been before. That has been one of my biggest struggles in life is like feeling like, oh, I've always been this way. How do I just stop being like that? Like, how do I not be the other person? And just deciding to be this other person or this person the next day, different from the other person the last week, because it's like you have to keep up. If you haven't spoken to me in 3 months, you don't even know me anymore. Okay,
that's right.
I'm somebody else. Honey.
That was the old me.
That was the old me.
I no longer live there anymore.
Yeah, you want my old shit by my old album, okay? Because that's not who I am anymore. So I just love it. Thank you so much for coming on and dropping your gems, dropping your daddy's gems, because I'm taking that one with me, honey.
Me
that
too.
One, go get your go get it. It's out there. Get it out the way so you can
get your why.
And get your why.
Get your why.
Yes, so you can pivot and adjust and improve, right? Because that's what life should be about for all of us, is becoming better people all the time. And really, honestly, and truly, not just saying it on Instagram, but creating the life that you want for yourself. And work. And another gem that she already dropped earlier, working to create your life. Like,
no, a life that you love.
A life that you love, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. So thank you guys for all the gems today. Thank you guys for tuning into this conversation. I hope it fills you and feeds you the way it did me. I just cannot. I sometimes I'm so surprised that you never know where these conversations are going to go. And we literally have not had one conversation that hasn't like shifted my own way of thinking. So thank you for contributing.
Well, thank you for having me. This is amazing.
So you guys tune in next time. You can catch us on YouTube now. Our podcast is casted where all the pods are casted. So please tune in and get these gems and get your life, and let's heal from these triggers. See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came, or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.